I am so bad at remembering all this stuff. I barely remember what I did yesterday. My days are so full. My life is so full. My life moves very quickly. And if I'm not paying attention, it's like a race car driver. If you're going fast, that race car driver, they've got to be fit, they've got to be hydrated. Sometimes they have to have a catheter or whatever because they can't stop to pee. Like, there's a lot of thought that goes into getting that race car driver ready. And there's a lot of time put into the efficiency of the car, right? And I am a race car. I try to treat myself like a professional, like a race car driver. I'm hauling ass. So I better make sure that I am getting a lot of these roadblocks out of the road before I start hauling ass. It's like checking the track. It's like, okay, did you walk the track before you started racing or did you just get in the car and go? Well, if you just get in the car and go, you're going to hit the pothole, you're going to run over the nail, you're not going to see the hazard. Versus if you just walk the track, you could pick up the stick and move it off to the side or the branch or the tree that fell over or water the track. Maybe you need to be a little more wet. Maybe it's too dry. Maybe the track's too dry. Maybe the track's really muddy and there's nothing you can do about it, but you should probably change your tires, right? To do all that. So anyway, these are all things we can do. We can walk the track. We can see what hazards might be out there that we can see. Obviously, things when you're racing around driving fast, shit happens. Shit goes wrong. We know stuff's going to go wrong. But what can we figure out ahead of time to make that lap as safe as possible, as easy as possible, as fast as possible? All right. And wanting to know the outcome before we even start. So, again, I'm going to relate this back to fitness, diet, exercise. All we can do is create a thesis, a theory, just like an experiment, just like a scientist. Like a scientist starts before they have a hypothesis on what is going to happen. And that scientist, most everybody wants to be right, but they teach you in science class, you're supposed to be objective. You're supposed to not have any tie to the outcome. You are supposed to have a hypothesis, but you're not supposed to try to force your hypothesis to happen. You just kind of have a hypothesis and then you do the experiment just to see what happens because it's all about just trying to figure out this world that we live in, right? And be an observer. So, similar to all this planning stuff, like my dad always says, you know why you make a plan? And everybody goes, no, why? So you can change it. Like you make a plan and then you have to expect that things are going to change along the way and you have to give yourself the flexibility to make those changes. But at the same time, as we do this every 90 days, as every 90 days do a look back period and I see, okay, this is what I did and this was my result. What things can I do more of to get more of the results that I want? So you keep pushing into those things and pushing into those things. So after a while, there'll be more and more evidence of whether or not you're doing the right things or you're not. Same thing with a diet, right? So with diet and exercise, when I was training for a bikini competition, it's like calories in, calories out. Like you understand the calories are a factor in this thing. It's not everything, but it is a contributing factor. So we have to track that. Now, then we get into protein and you realize, wow, protein's super important with this whole muscle building, fat burning thing. Now I got to make sure I'm hitting my protein numbers. And you want to hit your protein numbers, then your calorie numbers. And now that I'm nailing all that, now let's look at exercise and see what can I do? Do I need to add cardio to get my calories? Because you get to a point where you're training for a bodybuilding competition that you really can't eat any less. Or you really shouldn't eat any less. You might be, it's like, okay, I'm not going to starve myself. That was always my standard. I'm not going to do this and like create an eating disorder or starve myself. So once I got to a certain pull up point, I could have reduced my calories, but I'm like, let's just reduce the calories. Like, I don't want to over reduce them. So I'll take longer. So I'm like, okay, I have a show like a year out and I'd work up my body to build muscle and eat and increase my calories slowly over like a 6-month period and get to the point where I'm like, okay, I know I'm eating efficiently and that I'm getting stronger and I'm not putting on too much fat. I think I'm putting on muscle. And then for the next 6 months, it was about reversing the calories and getting the calories down. But I would only cut once every 2 weeks because I found that cutting more often than that did no good because I never really knew what a diet was going to do, at least for the first 2 to 4 weeks. So that was always my rule. I would stick to a plan at least for 2 weeks. If I saw it going horribly wrong, I would then be okay to change it. And if it wasn't, but I wasn't seeing the results as fast as I wanted, I'd still make myself do another 2 weeks for a total of 4 weeks. Because sometimes I would notice the body would kind of hold, and then those last 2 weeks, it would just start responding. So sometimes it takes a little longer than we expect. So I would always have that 2 to 4 week cushion. And I always try to cut 100, 150 calories, 200 calories at the most from my diet. And I even got to where I would do it on a weekly basis. So I'd be like, all right, well, let's cut 500 calories out a week because over a month, that's 2,000 calories and a pound of fat is about 3,700 calories. When you get super lean, cutting a pound of fat is pretty substantial when you get down to these very, very low body fat percentages. And I am not at all training for any kind of bodybuilding competition. I'm sure you could imagine. You can always go back on my Instagram and see how extremely lean I was able to get myself. And I took zero drugs. It was 100% natural, and I was able to accomplish those body fat levels 100% naturally. I coached myself as well, and I'm very proud of that. Yeah, slow and steady. Let's see. Well, and then what I was getting at is a lot of people want to know the outcome before they even start, and I do too. I do want to know the outcome, and I think having a more ambiguous and more broad definition of what the outcome is going to be can be useful. So just knowing that you are going to improve. Okay, if I do X, Y, and Z, I know beyond a reasonable doubt that I will improve. How much am I going to improve? I don't know. That's to be determined. We'll find out in 2 to 4 weeks or 90 days or whatever, right? But I know that if I increase this activity, I will improve. Have faith in that. Now, increase that activity over 90 days. See what happens, or 2 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever your threshold is. My threshold for reducing my calories and readjusting my diet was because I was training for a competition and I had a deadline. So if there's a deadline involved, you can increase the frequency of which you're checking your progress. For me, I guess I don't really have a for me to add. But yeah, I mean, there were times where I certainly wanted to know the outcome, and there was no way to know the outcome because every body is different. Some girls can just have one adjustment to their plan and they run that plan all the way through to their competition day, and they didn't have to have a water retention strategy or like a water loss strategy. I did do all that. I did bikini. I'm more of like a natural figure kind of body type. And doing bikini was a challenge for me. I would definitely have to manipulate my water. And that's how I learned how to do water manipulation. I learned it all on myself. And actually, I learned the most probably from Mr. Scott Stevenson. He has his Be Your Own Bodybuilding Coach book, which is a fabulous book, great book. If you are doing your own competition, if you're training a competition, I would highly recommend anybody read that book before you hire a coach. Even if you do plan on hiring a coach, I think everybody should at least learn a lot of the protocols that he has in there. I learned a lot from him, particularly about water manipulation. He was doing a lot of that before these MMA coaches started doing it, which is interesting. But anyway, getting attached to outcomes. I think the best strategy for me with this has been having a very broad outcome, having a very generic outcome, or maybe not generic, and generic isn't the right word, but not saying, okay, if I follow this diet in 4 weeks, I'm going to have a bikini body. Like, no, if you follow this diet and in 2 to 4 weeks, your body's going to look better than it did 2 to 4 weeks ago. Is that still a win? Yes, absolutely. And also, there's only so much progress you can make in a healthy way because I was not willing to, there were certain things I was not willing to do. There were certain things I was not willing to compromise on. I was not willing to take any drugs under the age of 40. I was not willing to do anything that was going to be harmful to my body. I wanted to do everything in a healthy way and also preserve my mindset and the way I thought about my body. I wanted to be proud of my body. That's the whole reason why I started that journey was because I saw this woman in a locker room and I thought, oh my gosh, look how confident she is. It wasn't so much that she looked good. Of course, she looked better than me, and her body wasn't perfect by any means, but she was just so confident. I was like, wow, I'm over here in the locker room, like trying to hide. Don't want anybody to see what's going on over here. And she's just like, yeah, I don't know, talking to people and, in underwear and bra and like doesn't care, walking to and from the shower. Like, man, what is it? I remember thinking, what does that feel like? What does it feel like to just walk around in front of other people? Yeah, it's all women in there. It was a time before everybody was letting everybody in locker rooms. But yeah, it was just all women in there. But it was just more of how she carried herself. And I could see the confidence. And I thought, man, what is it like to be like that? I want to work out hard enough to where one day I feel like that. I want to work on this hard enough so that I can get that feeling. It wasn't so, again, it wasn't so much about how she looked. It was more about working hard enough to not give a fuck what other people think. It was about, and has always been about, working hard enough to not give a fuck what other people think. So to me, it was more about freedom from judgment from myself. And again, it's coming back full circle with this whole message of forgiving. I'm getting a lot of messages about people forgiving other people. But I think the root of it is to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for whatever that might be, a decision that you made, getting involved with that person that hurt you. I think when we go back and we look at the things that cause us pain when we think about them or cause us negative emotions when we think about those events or those circumstances, there are certain events and circumstances in our lives that cause us pain. And I believe that when we think and we look at those in our minds, the reason why we're having those emotions is because we have not fully forgiven ourselves. We haven't forgiven ourselves for having that relationship with that person. We're not forgiving ourselves for allowing that person to hurt us or not putting up, we're mad at ourselves for not putting up boundaries. We're mad at ourselves for trusting in information or other people or systems that didn't work out. Maybe your first reaction is to be mad and to be to blame. But at the end of the day, I don't think we can truly heal until we go back and we think about it and say, you know what? I forgive myself. I did the best I could under that circumstance with the information that I had at the time, with my maturity level at the time, with my spiritual understanding at the time. You know what? Fuck it. Like, why do I need to keep suffering and rehashing this in my mind? I choose to forgive myself today and move forward. So, yeah, going back to not knowing the outcome, we are not going to know the outcome. We are not God. We don't have a crystal ball. I'm not a wizard. I don't know what's in the future. But what I can do today is I know that if I work on something that I believe is important for my future and is in alignment with my morals and my values, I will get better and I will be a better person for it. And that is the outcome that I want. And finding that outcome, that mission, that reason, find a better reason.